Hello and welcome, beautiful people, to the Money Lap. I'm Parker Kligerman, joined as always by my buddy Landon, Cassill. This is our show about all motorsports, and today is a big day. It is our 100th episode, and we've done absolutely nothing to celebrate in typical us fashion. So anyway, we'll discuss all things NASCAR at Texas, the Miami GP, IndyCar at Barber, and some bigger topics that seem to be swirling around the motorsports world. Welcome to the Money Lap. I kind of look up mid-taco bite. You don't know disappointment. Talking all things motorsports by two real drivers.
I appreciate being called a gritty driver.
With many, many years of experience.
We've had to do that other people didn't want to do.
The most dedicated host in the motorsports podcast world.
Weren't we supposed to have somebody come on our show as a guest?
No, we did it.
Did we?
Yes.
Yes, for our 1 year anniversary.
And we definitely know what we're doing. Remember, talk through your mic.
I'm talking past it like this.
Well, if you just pointed it differently. Like, never mind. Never mind.
Oh,
Never mind.
Let's
the
talk about
standard is
race
like-
cars. God's
This
sakes.
is our worst show ever. Landon, this is
Yes.
also our 2-year anniversary plus 1 day. We started May 4th, 2022. Today's May 5th, 2025. No, we started 2023. Sorry. So it's all coincided perfectly. We did nothing to celebrate this, but actually, Denny Hamlin did wish us a happy birthday. If you want to take a listen.
I do want to take a
Wait.
listen.
Well, I mean, that was the cue for Josh to cue it. He just never did anything.
You didn't know. You didn't tell me we were doing this right off the
It's
bat.
in the No Denny clip today. By the way, on Denny's show podcast, there's a podcast. He said this today, so he doesn't even realize this. Just take a listen.
Landon Cassill had a good quote tweet of this video of this wreck, and I'll just pull out 2 lines. Is that if you're the slower car, make the faster car pass you where you want them to pass you. If you are in control of your own car, not your spotter, not the leader, not your crew chief. I think drivers like Chris sometimes have too many people in their ear telling them what to do, and they forget that they're the ones in control.
Yeah, 100% agree with it. It's 100% accurate. Shout out to Landon Cassill, Parker Kligerman for their Money Lap podcast. It's a great podcast if you want to check it out. But I agree with them 100%. You are in control of your
Cut it
car,
off there.
and when you're that
Cut it
far
off
off
there.
the pace,
What about that? He didn't even know.
That's great. Thank you, Denny.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. We know you're
Thank you,
listening,
Denny.
and we appreciate you being our sole listener. At least we got one. It's an important one. But kind of cool. I mean, we committed to this, and we've said this before. We were like, we're going to do this whether anyone listens or watches or not. We've committed to that. We've continued to do it. We're at 100 of these. You asked me earlier, does it feel like more or less? Probably more. Through all the iterations, all the stuff we do in the background to make this happen with our great team, Josh Mendoza, AJ Henderson, Brett Worsham, Kyle Dagger. But it's definitely kind of surprising we got to this moment. This is supposed to be like an inflection point for shows like ours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll feel that or not, but
I don't know. It does. It
Yeah.
feels like more to me because we've been talking about race cars with a microphone together for longer than just this podcast, this show, right? We've been on NBC together. We've been on E-Racer together. We've done a lot of stuff together talking about racing. And I think that I love what you said about why we started this show, because that is actually goes all the way back to the common denominator here, which is we just like talking about racing. That's it. And I'm pretty sure we will continue doing this show even after the last fan decides to stop listening.
So once Denny turns it off, finally,
When Denny finally says, you know what, I'm tired of these guys, I don't need to hear what they have to say,
that's
and
when we
turns
know.
it off, we
Yep.
will still probably talk about race cars, because race cars are an interesting creature.
They are.
And the
They
sport
are.
is an interesting sport. And we just love talking about it.
Some like to think they are endangered species at this time. I don't agree that racing's alive and well. It's still going. And as the Kentucky Derby showed this past weekend, that hasn't been a viable form of transportation over 130 years, and we're still racing those things. So, and a lot of people tune in.
That's a good one. Yep.
All we
Thank you
ask-
for the shout out, Denny.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could talk about my tweet and expand on it a little bit later. I'm sure it's in the show notes. You guys are killing me with these show notes. Our naming convention episode I'm sorry, season 3, episode 19, episode 100. It's just, can we just simplify our naming convention a little bit?
We went by season for some reason, which I can't remember. And it maybe should have just been chronological order of numbers.
I
Way
feel
easier
like I just wanted to
conceptualized.
go just simple numbers, no seasons, just episode
It was a
numbers. But
mistake.
anyways, yes. Thank you, Denny, for the shout out. Thank you to the team for building the foundation for us to be able to make these shows.
Yeah, for sure. And all we ask is that you, the listener, the viewer, Denny, if you would just share it with your friends, family, help us get more than just one. We'd be really excited about that. So be awesome to have. And we also, on X today, I tweeted basically that we didn't really do anything to celebrate our 100th episode. So if they had questions or comments to reply to that tweet, we got a bunch of replies. So we'll go into those in the PR lap, which we've moved to the end.
We're just here grinding, man. We don't have time for the self-congratulatory.
No, we're going to do it at the end. They had some interesting thoughts and comments, so we'll dive into that. But let's start with Cup at Texas. Texas overall was pretty interesting, but we'll start in the Cup Series. A fairly interesting race, from the outside. Fairly entertaining, compared to some of the other races I watched on Sunday. I would say definitely probably the most entertaining. And sort of the Texas that has come about since this repave of 2017, which is sort of this, like, yes, it's hard to pass. Yes, the leader can have a lot of control. Clean air is obviously worth a gargantuan amount of speed. But for whatever reason, it's such a difficult place. Like, if you get out of the groove at all, you're screwed. Turn 2 is really difficult, especially on restarts. 3 and 4 is difficult, especially we'll get into this, like the phenomenon of the next gen car running the high lane and hitting that bump in 3 and 4 and spinning cars out. Because of that, you get all these cautions, which really jumble up the field. It offered strategies. And here we get late in that race. We have Michael McDowell on 2 tires looking like he might be able to go get a win in such McDowell fashion. So I thought it was overall a compelling show.
I thought it was a good race. Yeah, I would agree. I have my nitpicks about the next gen. I think you made a really good point about how it is extremely sensitive to dirty air. Maybe one of the most sensitive cars to dirty air that we've had in the Cup Series, yet also is capable of putting on a great intermediate race. So it's a really weird juxtaposition of issues that it's hard to completely unpack. But those last 30 laps of that race, there was a lot of different scenarios that could have played out. I was kind of rooting for the McDowell scenario. I really wanted to see it go green.
100%. I was rooting for a big time.
And not just saying rooting for him to win. I mean, I was rooting for McDowell to win, don't get me wrong, but I was rooting for that green flag run with him leading because the first time, not the second time, because I thought it would actually be a really good finish, like a race to the win there. And then they kept having those cautions and forcing the restarts, and I didn't like that part. I thought it was going to be a good one-on-one battle for the win. The other one too, I was really disappointed in seeing Reddick wreck because I felt like I wanted to see a 15 to 20 lap run to the end because I felt like Reddick versus Larson for the win would have been interesting. I kind of thought Reddick had that long run speed. He was committed to the top. I thought he was going to be able to make it interesting there too. So, but then you have Chastain with just a veteran P2, which is exactly what I texted him after.
He stock car raced his way into that P2.
He just stuck. Yeah. He took that one from me. That was like the, that was like taking a Johnny Davis car and running top 8 with it version of P2. Where it's just, he just stock car drivered his way into a P2, which that was really cool. I was proud of him for that.
That was really good.
That's like one of those non-fanfare deals where you just you're walking back to the bus and you're not getting a whole lot of attention because you weren't the center of attention for 500 miles or how was it even a 500? How long was it?
400 mile. 400
miles. You weren't the center of attention for 400 miles. You're just walking there by yourself, not really saying anything, and you're like, this P2. I don't know. I feel like I had those days
Oh yeah.
And Ross and I had a lot of those days driving an Xfinity series and stuff. So that's why I texted him on that. I was like, veteran P2.
Well,
But that was cool. And I just,
Yeah.
the one thing I've said this on the show before, you know, I'm getting a little bit too granular on the car. The one thing I don't
oh
like,
geez, here we go.
yeah, I know.
By the way, before
we can move on from this, but
well, hold on. The way you started that, by the way, we had a friend that works at the Death Star. No, I'm kidding. works for NASCAR. Who this past week was like, "You guys are so negative. You're just all you complain. Everything's a complaint. Everything's awful. It's awful. Why even watch? It's the worst thing ever. Everything sucks." And I don't think we are. But I think the nature of what we do here, where we discuss things within this sport and around the motorsports world, lends us to occasionally want to say, hey, if I could snap my fingers and fix that thing, this is what would it be? Or this is what I hoped it looked like, or this is what I want.
Human nature.
That's exactly. It's the nature of doing a show like this. We're just discussing as if we were just on the phone what we saw and what we liked and what we disliked. So to Mr. Negative out there, we're not negative. We're just being constructive and having a conversation. So anyway, go on. What were you going to say?
I don't know. I'm just making observations. I don't like how the outside car has such a disadvantage sometimes in the next gen. But then there's this turning point, you know, where you can kind of cross that threshold positioning wise. But like, I feel like an outside car, when you're on the right rear quarter panel of someone, it's we're so used to that being an advantageous position. But in the next gen, especially at a track like Texas, where the track gets so narrow on corner exit, and the way the arrow works on those cars, the guy on the inside has a ton of leverage. And that just bothers me. I've said that on the show. We've talked about it. But like the way Larson ran, who did he run up the track? Was it Reddick, actually? I can't remember who it was. Larson ran somebody up the track, and it was almost like I was watching an F1 race where Larson had no business doing what he was doing, but because he was on the inside and he had this leverage, that he just ran him up the track. And I was like, I didn't like that. It's not that I didn't like that Larson ran him up the track. I didn't like that the outside car was so helpless in that position.
Hold up. I'm going to counter that. I'm going to completely counter that, because if I watch the trucks in Xfinity on Friday, Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
My natural inclination is if a car gets to the right rear of another car on the inside, you're finished. Goodbye. Like
You're
that
done.
car on the outside's gone. Goodbye. And you see, trucks is probably the most visible example, because the second you dump all that air on their spoiler and you get to the right rear and take the side force away, they're loose and they're going backwards no matter what. And it's massive effect. The Xfinity car, similar effect, not as drastic, but very similar effect. Once you take the right side air away, they're finished. But one of the things I've noticed, and it's funny you point that out, is we've talked often about how the inside car of the new next-gen car I don't even know if it's new at this point. The next-gen car has the leverage compared to everything we've seen in the past. But what's interesting about that to me is I watched many times through turns 1 and 2 of this race on Sunday where I'm sitting there and I see that car on the outside get to the right rear of the inside car, and I think, they're finished. It's done. And then they come back and they end up side by side, and that bottom car actually gains the leverage into 3 and then makes the pass. And I was like, well, damn, that's kind of cool. And it tricks, because of the last 20 years of this sport and what the car design was, I still am changing my brain to see that moment and not think the outside car is about to side draft and go by. Right. So I actually think it's a feature, not a bug in a lot of respects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just take it then. I mean, I'm fine with that. I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's what you said is absolutely right. I'm just so used to seeing it one way. And
but that doesn't mean it's
like, and I was rooting for Reddick, right? It's like I'm rooting for Reddick, but then you get to the outside of these guys, and he couldn't complete it, and I was like, I was hoping for more. And but yeah, it was a good race. It was interesting. It was cool to see. Another thing that's interesting about this car is how tires and new tires is such an advantage, right? Like the car has softer tires. There's tire fall off. We see that, and yet a 2-tire strategy still has space in this field, right? Not for everybody. I mean, you got to restart in that front row. You got to have the clean air, but there was space for a 2-tire strategy in this field today or yesterday.
Yeah,
and
I think that's pretty typical of this car.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't always the case. It's definitely, I think the tires can
But
continue to be a talking point.
two-tire strategy in the Xfinity car, right? At a track where there's even 3/4 of a second to fall off.
Nope, not going to work.
No dice. You don't even make it into turn 1 in the lead.
No.
Right?
No, you
You're
can't get
spinning
fired.
tires on the restart. You can't even get fired off. So
Yeah.
it's like that's one thing that the next gen offers that we wouldn't have if we got all the things that we want, right? The horsepower and the low downforce and the two tires would not make it
Yeah.
in those scenarios.
Also, just a shout out to Texas. Big crowd on hand. One of the bigger in
That's what I
recent
heard.
memory. Yeah, which was cool. I heard it going into it. They had like a massive bump in ticket sales. So I hope they were rewarded with the show they enjoyed. But that's cool to see. That place, what was it? Just a couple years ago, we went there and it was like, does anyone know the race was here? Like, no one showed up. It was like, oh God, what's happening? How long has this track got? And then they showed up this weekend. So that was cool to see. One phenomenon, I mentioned it earlier, that was interesting. Maybe it's a feature, maybe it's a bug of this next gen car, was the outside of 3 and 4 had a couple victims over that bump that's in the center, which included the leader, Josh Berry, losing it as he went to the outside of the 51 of Cody Ware, trying to just have clean air. Literally lost it by himself up there. You had Chase Briscoe lose it, and then he's in the green room, of course, we'll hopefully talk to him a little bit about this. Kyle Busch lost as well. And the worst part about the Kyle Busch one was that he was in position. He had speed all day, had speed all weekend, and it looked really good. And he went to the outside into 3. And my immediate thought was, oh no, he's going to hit that bump and spin out. And then he literally hits that bump and spins out. And I was just like, oh, heartbreaking. Like, we're all rooting for Kyle at this point. You can tell Kevin and Clint were the same way. They're just like, you want to see the guy successful again. Come on, give him a shot. What do you think is going on there? Clint said, basically it's the car bottoming out. Maybe it's hitting the rub box, whatever you want to call it. It's an odd phenomenon, and I'm sure it's multifaceted in that you hit the bottom of the car, which makes the rear end go to infinity in terms of spring rate. You then probably erase all the underbody downforce when you do that all at the same time, and there's no real this tire doesn't have a large ability to slide, so it's more of a knife edge and therefore just loops around. But it was kind of odd to see 3 world-class drivers all do the exact same thing.
Well, I'll make that 4 because I've done it.
You did it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the Xfinity car or the Cup car?
The Cup car.
That's right.
Same bump, same everything.
You did the same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
All right. So what'd you feel? What happened?
I think you described it well, where it's just that it's a vicious bump right there. And then especially with those cars. And I mean, I can't diagnose every single instance of each car and what's going on there and what it bounced off of and what it hit. At the end of the day, you're right on that edge. And there's something about that angle and the where you're in the gas and how much speed you're carrying right there, running the top versus running the bottom, that when you hit it the wrong way and the car's, you've got the tires loaded at the wrong angle, you can't save it. So it's just very treacherous.
Well, it was odd. And that is the oddity of this whole setup and everything. It's odd to see.
We love tracks with character.
We do. And that's why I don't want to say like, oh man, track issue. Like, no, don't grind. Like, I mean, don't grind it. Don't do anything like that. I mean,
they do need to put they need to change turn 1 and 2 back to the old 1 and 2.
Well, they definitely need. I would say that the only change I'd say there. So people were asking me this weekend. I was just like, bank 1 and 2, or even my crazy idea.
Oh my gosh, we're going down a rabbit hole.
I know it's not
hold on. No, listen. This is these going back to the fantasy land. So I'm sure that Texas has been in a conversation for what they should do there and should they make it like Atlanta and all this stuff. Leave turn 3 and 4 alone.
Mm-hmm.
Leave the front stretch and the back stretch alone. Dig up turn 1 and 2 and bank the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Fresh pavement on one end, worn out pavement on the other. Like, you want a track with some character. Now you've got Now you've got some character.
Well, you know my crazy idea of that place, because there's such a large amount of asphalt from the bottom to the top, which was one of the more
Mhm.
interesting design choices I've ever seen, because it was just like, hey, does anyone ever drive a race car? No, we're never going to end up out there. I thought it was like, do the math, use iRacing, use sim, whatever, figure out what is like the average time running the bottom and the speed and all that stuff, and then bank the just full one lane next to the wall enough that you could run basically the same speed as you would going to the bottom. So your 2 lanes are all in the bottom or all the
I
way
don't
up
think-
top next to the wall.
I don't think that would work like you think it would. I think you would end up with that's how Irwindale was designed, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, this would be more drastic, but
Yeah,
A
and the
little
car's
bit.
going 100 miles an hour faster.
dude, the Xfinity cars do like 195 in qualifying in turn 1. Then
Now,
you just
my last
imagine that, and then you
suggestion-
rip the one lane on the fence.
My last suggestion on what they should do with Texas is to make it an actual stadium road course, like a full-on road course.
Okay,
Think Roval,
we're done
but a
here.
purpose-built stadium road course.
they're absolutely not
Bank
going to do that.
corners. No,
They have a
absolutely not.
road course in there. If you want to go see it, you can watch in the late 90s, early 2000s American Le Mans Series raced on it. It's basically just like a big chicane in the middle through the infield.
Or you could go to eRacers Twitch, because I think we ran an iRacing league that ran on.
We did.
I think we did, and that was one of the wildest road courses. It absolutely had no place to pass. The infield had this random just chicane in it that
Mhm.
you just took at full speed, and it was one lane the whole way through there.
Yeah, no, it's tiny. It was similar to the one. It's a little bit better version of the one they've had at California Speedway. RIP.
I
What's
don't. The racing
go
in
on.
Texas this weekend was decent overall, and Texas is a track that's taken a lot of heat from me. I don't, like I've been mad at that place since they resurfaced it and reconfigured it. But 3 and 4 is a good corner. That is a good.
It's a good
corner
stock
for
car
interme-
corner.
It's a good stock car corner. It's got speed. It's got danger. They had that in 1 and 2 before they flattened it and widened it. 1 and 2 was a world class stock car corner before they redid it.
One of the best. If you hooked the bottom with your left sides and put it on that white line, and then there was this last little bit that would rotate the car again on the bottom 1 and 2. It
When
was
you had
so
to, because
awesome.
you're pointing at the wall until you
Yeah.
hit it.
And
off
then,
the corner.
but you had to like play the throttle a little bit on exit, and it would rotate right at the last bit, and then you could run the high side. And there was a big bump, but if you used the bump to turn the car, you could come down the hill, almost diming it. It was that was a good special corner. Shout out to Fox, really good broadcast on Sunday. Feels like it was just something was a little different, whatever reason. Felt like it was a good broadcast. So they even had Regan Smith afterwards do like 4 interviews in a row, all in succession, like a walk, like almost like a grid walk. It was awesome. I thought it was great.
That's good.
So he interviewed like the top 5 just in succession. Boom, 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 boom. You mentioned one of the people interviewed was Ross Chastain. He finished second. He had a very interesting interview in which he said, one of the quotes was, "The speed of the Trackhouse cars on Saturdays is just terrible, and we're just not confident. All 3 drivers, I can't drive an uncomfortable car." And he basically went further and further into saying how I just don't have confidence in the car. They made some adjustments, gave me confidence, that sort of thing. So, any thoughts on this? What he was alluding to?
No, I don't. I don't know. What do you
Come to
think
Money
they're
Lap
struggling
for
with?
your most in-depth
What are they
analysis.
struggling? What are they struggling with?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like speed. I mean, I've seen multiple instances of their cars look a little bit, hairy, and a little bit
Mhm.
sketchy to drive. I think SVG has been a good example of that. I texted with him a couple weeks ago, just about how tough it's been for him. He now sits basically 1 above being the lowest in points right now. So it's been a really tough, start to his full-time Cup career for SVG. Suarez has had good runs at times, so has Ross, but it just seems like compared to 2 or 3 years ago, obviously the speed isn't there, and for whatever reason, he's referencing that it's difficult to have confidence in the race car, which to me sometimes can be a double-edged sword, because if your race car doesn't have speed, you're trying to extract more speed out of it, and to do that, sometimes you have to take more risk, make the car a little bit looser than you want, a little bit more uncomfortable, but that's the only way it creates speed, which makes it harder to drive, which saps your confidence when it does weird things and tries to get away from you and that sort of thing. And it makes it really difficult to race.
Right.
I don't know what development path or in terms of setup path they could have gone that would make this be the case. But obviously, you know, you don't say those things lightly without referencing that, hey, look, it's not easy right now, right? And it's interesting in a essentially spec car to have, you know, a team or an organization be showing signs of struggling in this fashion with knowing that, you know, the amount of information that GM shares amongst those top key partner teams, that sort of thing, right? But, you know, whatever path they've gone or whatever they're doing setup wise is obviously difficult for them to drive right now.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that speed is built in the shop during the week, in the sim and in the development. You know, that's the part. I obviously you got to communicate with the driver on the setup and the package and the direction that you're bringing to the track. But the most of your speed is made at the shop. You don't just find it at the track, right? What you find at the track is just execution and that you tie all that together with confidence with your driver. And so sometimes, you know, you do need to just listen to the driver at the track. And I'm not saying Trackhouse isn't listening to their drivers, but clearly if they feel like they're struggling with their Saturdays, right? They're not making progress. Their drivers aren't confident in the car, in the decisions. That lack of confidence, and even the fact that they're willing to say it out loud, is enough to negate any ounces of speed they think they found in the sim for those changes, right? If the driver's not bought in on what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm maybe projecting that because I think every driver is different. I think a driver like, you know, like Kyle Larson, he doesn't know or even care what's going in the car, right? He has no, he's not that type of driver. Ross is a little bit of an old school style driver, similar to myself, where he's good at understanding what's going in the car. Myself, I could tend to be a pain in the ass on a lot of crew chiefs because I wanted to know
You don't
the direction
say.
of the setup. Yeah, I wanted to know the direction of the setup and things like that. That actually, you know, for me, the crew chiefs that I worked the best with were the ones that understood that my interest in those things had as much to do with, you know, reinforcing my confidence in the car as it did the actual direction of the setup itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I don't know if that's what they're missing at Trackhouse, but I do feel like you're not going to find 3/10 of speed on a Saturday. Like you're not just going to discover it in the sim. So if you need 3/10, it has to come from the confidence of that driver. So like what he's saying, or if he's asking for something, if Ross, you know, if they're not giving him something that he wants, or if they're not going in the direction, or if the crew chief wins the tiebreaker on Ross wants to do this and the crew chief wants to do that, if the crew chief wins all those tiebreakers, that actually might be part of your problem, right? And again, I'm kind of just making these assumptions, and so you know, I don't want to be unfair to Ross and his team and what they are trying and what they're not trying. They're probably working great together, but that absolute when he said that they're struggling on Saturdays and he's not comfortable and confident, like that just tells me that when he makes a suggestion for a change, or when he just tells the direction he wants to go and then they make the changes, that he's not fully looped in or bought into where that's what's happening in the car there.
To put this
I also think I want
ahead.
to add one more thing. I'm just going to
Okay.
add more assumptions to
Yeah,
this.
please do. Yeah, why not? This is what they say
I
you do
think-
on these.
I think potentially, and I want to be corrected here, and if I'm wrong, because I don't, you know, it's like I haven't been in their competition meetings, but I think that's potentially what's going on with that 18, because Kyle is a very vocal guy about what he wants in his car, and he knows what he wants in his cars, right? And we are so engineering driven these days when it comes to the simulation and what the data says, and the modern engineer and the modern like vehicle designers nowadays they have way more information to sort of not necessarily believe or listen in what the driver's telling them and say, hey, I have data that backs up what we actually should be doing. Right. But Kyle comes from a generation of drivers that like he just you got to somehow bridge the gap for someone like him, because when Kyle Busch says what he wants the car to do and the platform or the corner that he wants you to work on, you should listen, right? Then again, maybe they are listening. Maybe they're doing everything Kyle tells them to do, and maybe that's their problem. I don't know. But like I can tell you that I'm like concocting this version of what the 8 car is struggling with right now in my own head, and I could absolutely see it coming from a very engineering focused and driven organization who is listening to their driver going, yeah, okay. But the data says this, so we're going to go with this. Right. And we're going to take your feedback as a mere suggestion, or we're not, maybe we're not okay, but that's not how it works anymore. And if that is the breakdown that most team and driver combinations are at risk of right now in this modern age, right?
It's an interesting point. Yeah, it's interesting. To put some context to the speed stuff, our buddies at Racing Insights, NASCAR Insights, rank Ross Chastain on the season 14th in speed in the NASCAR Cup Series. Daniel Suarez is 22nd, SVG 35th. So definitely not where they would want to be in terms of speed.
Is it crazy to think though that to be average 14th in speed is actually probably not bad?
No, it's not bad at all.
That's if you could go the whole season,
3 cars too.
Yeah, I mean that's tough for his teammate, both of his teammates to be as far down as they are. But I would be willing to bet if Ross can hold a top 14 in speed ranking for the duration of the season, that's winnable stats.
Yeah, I think he could win for sure. And he's 13th in points, so he's doing Ross things to keep it up there, right? On the flip side of that, Kyle Busch, 18th ranked in speed. And to go a little bit deeper on that, you remember I was doing a lot of sim testing for him in 23. And I saw that a little bit of what you're talking about, which is Kyle Busch in a truck or an Xfinity car gets in there. And when he came and did the Xfinity car at Charlotte, I want to say last year, was it? He joined our debrief meeting on Monday, and his breakdown of everything he felt and what he wants in the car was unbelievable. If I had recorded it, it would go viral. It was one of the more incredible things I've ever heard of just detail-oriented breakdown of feel from each corner of the car and what it was doing to each phase and each run and in basically each lane. And it was just, I was like, whoa, this is a whole nother level. That, like you said, comes from 20 years of driving that type of car and knowing exactly what he wants in it.
Well, and it's not with him. It's not just the breakdown. I want you to continue your thought, but with him, it's not just the breakdown that he's good at. In those cars, he also knows the solution.
Yes, exactly. And he did know the solution. He knew exactly where to go. And he was like, you need to do this, you need to do that, blah, blah, blah. For the next gen car, one of the things they fought initially with him was he has that specific feel, and they were trying to sort of build it into the next gen car. And it was incredibly tough. And to give you some context on that, driving his setup, what he wanted, what they were going down the path for him at, say, Vegas, compared to what they had run with Reddick a year prior, was 2 ends of the scale of loose versus tight. And Kyle was actually the tighter side, right? Reddick known to like that loose race car, driving on the right rear, that sort of thing. Now, I think the next gen has also progressed in terms of how people set them up, what they understand about them. So now take this with a grain of salt. But at that time, that's what they were struggling with, is this idea of like, he has such an incredible detailed feel and such knowledge and a notebook of what he wants in these cars, that trying to meld that in the next gen was proving to be not possible. And it was becoming maybe to their, holding them back from certain performance possible. And I think that's sort of continued where he's had to shift his feel in the car. Plus, he's at a team that is not Hendrick Motorsports. It's not Joe Gibbs, right? It's a challenger team in that respect. And, you combine those two, and it's why you see him occasionally have a run like he had at Texas, where he's almost, you feel like sometimes putting that car on his back a little bit and just being like, I'm just going to find a way, right? But that puts you in a really precarious position, because when you're trying to take a car higher than it is speed wise into uncharted territory, mistakes happen. That's where you push it too far. That's why you spin out up 2, 3, and 4, hitting that bump. I know that happened to Leader as well, but I'm just saying for context, why does he do that? He's pushing that car so hard. The same can be said for what Ross is saying about the uncomfortable side of the car, not having confidence. You do that because you're trying to take something further than it's really designed to be, right? Or what the stats and what the data tells you would be the place that car could run. And you're going up against cars that maybe drive a little better. So I think that's possibly, what's going on there. What's that?
I'm raising my hand.
Oh, sorry. I had stats up. I couldn't see you.
Oh,
what do you want to say?
Josh was probably like, what is he doing?
What is he going on about?
Well, so you kind of triggered a thought there when you were talking about the next gen is just a new car, right? And Kyle's style is starting over with this fresh canvas of a car. And so all of his knowledge, his previous knowledge sort of needs to be relearned, right? But if that is, if RCR did not acknowledge that part of what makes Kyle Busch is the fact that he can like assess and diagnose his own car, right? And so what you have to do is you have to be a supplement to that. You have to enforce that, right? If they sort of just got this new car and said, well, he doesn't know as much about this new car as he does the old car, so that doesn't work, I would say that's absolutely wrong. You have to embrace Kyle Busch, right? And you have to find a way to get Kyle Busch as educated on this new car as he was his old car, even though it took 20 years to get there.
Now, time
Right,
out.
we-
Hold on.
we don't have 20 years.
We are a couple of years into this, by the way. It's not like it's 2022, by the way.
Right, but I would be like, I would hope that they're giving Kyle Busch every ounce of information that they can to get him to learn this car the way that he learned the old car. And now Kyle's going to force that because Kyle's interested in that stuff to begin with. I hope. I think if he's the same Kyle Busch that I knew, that I worked with, right, then he's just as into these cars and what, every corner load and aero platform and everything. He's just as into that stuff as he was then. But you have to still let Kyle Busch be Kyle Busch and do those things, right? And you have to entertain those conversations and educate him on what you're studying, what you're learning, and what this car can do and what it needs. And then go, okay, Kyle, put the pieces together. And that, for me, like, I identified with that. That's why I love Kyle Busch and loved working with him. And he helped me so much early in my career when I was starting parking. Like, that's the type of driver I am, is like, I needed to know, I could tell you what the car's doing, but like, I needed a hint, right? Like I needed to put it all into context. Hey, we're working on sway bar stuff right now. We're working on shock stuff right now. We're working on the right rear spring. We're working on truck arms, right? And here's how they work. And the more I learned about this stuff, the better I got, right? I couldn't just hop in and drive it and be like, oh, it's loose, it's tight, it's this and that. Some drivers can. And actually, some of the best drivers in the world can. Kyle Larson, that's how he is, right? Jimmy Johnson, that's how he was. Best drivers in the world, that's how they were. They didn't know shit about about all the details, right? And so, that's just a chemistry thing, I think. But like for me, for Kyle Busch, it's like I needed that stuff to like put it all together and go, yeah, that was a good move, right? Or it was just a placebo. But hey, I thought it was a good move. And I liked it. And I've been asking you to do it for the last 3 runs, and you finally did it. So hell yeah, it was faster. Like, I don't know. That was kind of goes back to what I was saying about Ross on a Saturday. It's like, hey man, if he's been asking for a little more compression in the right front shock, and you got one more run left to do in happy hour, just give it to him.
Well, happy hour doesn't exist anymore. But I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Last hour of practice, just give it to him.
You get an hour of practice? Where do you get an hour?
Jesus, I don't know. Parker.
It's like 25 minutes, man.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, though. I just had to call you out.
Moving on.
Yes, moving on. Joe Logano went on to win. Not a news flash to anyone out there, especially if you're listening or watching this. So, finally gets a win this season. It didn't look likely even 15, 20 laps before it happened, but he did get it done. I don't know if there was anything special he did other than
Modern day Joey Logano win.
Yeah, well, I know. I saw all the tweets, and it was like, "Oh, this is the most Joe Logano win ever." It's like nowhere to be found, and just like
I love
a
that
couple
about him.
restarts later wins. I'm like, well, that's part of the game. Like that guy is the same thing said about him winning a championship last year. You know, like the 17th best points or whatever. And it's
Isn't
like,
that when you realize that a driver has gone from being good to great?
yeah, when they start hitting on him.
Like, well, no,
Yeah.
no. Like the context of those wins. That was Jimmy Johnson in peak Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, Golden Horseshoe era.
Yeah, like the golden horseshoe era of Jimmy Johnson, where it's just like you go from winning because your team is good and your car is fast and you dominate races, to now all of a sudden the wins just happen. It's like, I ran 7th all day, but we won. Like, I don't like, Chad did a little something here, something there, picked the right lane on a restart. Boom. There's
Boom,
another
win. Count
Another
it.
one.
Is that
Yeah.
is that luck or is that skill being manifested as luck?
No, I think it's skill. That's why I just said I think that's like going from good to great. It's like that's just when they become next level.
Hmm.
I think
That
it's
is interesting.
I think it's
Yeah.
making your own luck.
It definitely feels that way. I mean, it was.
And look at that team. Look. I mean, you have Logano and Paul Wolf.
I mean, come
Like
on.
that combination right there. They're in peak era of that pairing. These wins that Twitter thinks X thinks is fraudulent, they're not by accident.
No.
Those guys know what they're doing.
He got there.
I'm not saying that he planned to run 8th until the last 2 restarts, right? That's not what's being said. What's being said is like those guys, those wins don't just happen by accident. Those guys know where to be and when to be there.
To put that into context, once again from NASCAR Insights, Racing Insights, he was ranked 14th in speed on the day. Ross Chastain was 23rd. P1 Kyle Larson on the day. Yeah. Kind of wild. Ross was number 2 on restarts, by the way. He was second. Really was getting it done.
Do you think
can see
there's do you think that like at a track like Texas and those restarts and the late race stuff that there's actually part of that magic there when you look at the difference between Joey Logano winning, Kyle Larson, and what happened at the end? And it's like there's almost a mental cost to being the fastest car for that many laps, for that long, restarting at first that many times. Like there ends up being a cost to that you just Joey maybe for restarting in the positions that he was in is just way less guarded, way less mental strength, but to be able to capitalize on it in one moment and win. Where
think
like Kyle had to nail it over and over and over and over and over again. And you just can't.
I think it's that, but I also think I sense Kyle Larson occasionally can get lulled like into a calm. I already know he's a super calm guy, and I don't think his heart rate ever gets above 90. Sometimes I feel that way. He gets out of a race car after dominating, he's like barely broke a sweat. I'm just like, God, what would it be like to be that guy? But I think there's times where, he's got such a gap, and it like not lulled is not the correct term, but I think to your point, it's like when you are forced to sort of root and gouge and fight on restarts and try and get track position, you're kind of in the moment, right? You're working on instinct, that sort of thing. When you're just leading 200 laps or 150 laps, whatever it is, or 100 laps, and you're constantly the leader and your pit crew keeps getting you out in first, I think there is a chance of like, the second you're challenged, it's kind of like, oh no, wait, what's happening?
You weren't ready for it.
You weren't ready for it. You weren't,
I can see that.
I 100% can see that sometimes.
From the perspective, that's a really good point, because from the perspective of the guy that's been running 8th for the last 5 restarts, you've seen what everybody does, right? From the leader's perspective, you only see what the guy next to you does. Yeah, I guess you got the camera on the guys behind you, but I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's what happened.
I'm
not saying this would happen. He had that restart that kind of all went away from him. And he just kind of came on the radio and said sorry. And I think, it's just a little bit of that. And to your point, it's like if the second you lose 2 rows there, he's suddenly in a territory. He's like, oh, I haven't been here all day. What is it? You're like, oh, wait, where do they go? Oh, why is he doing that? Oh, I guess I go there now. Like, I don't know. I just think it's an odd I mean, I know he ran further back than the lead early on in the race, but I don't know. I just think there's times where I sense that can happen, and it's an odd thing because you're at the top of the game. It should be so intense no matter what. But the reason he wins a lot and that he is the championship level driver he is that it doesn't phase him, right? And there's definitely something to be said if you're just stuck in the mud for 350 miles and you get the chance. It's like YOLO, going for it. Already made this move a couple times. Oh, we're in the lead. That's awesome. Great. Let's win it. Right. So I see that. Hey, we've been talking about horsepower for years now, and we've seen this confirmed before. But once again, Doug Yates over there at the Roush Yates Ford Motor Program said going to 750 horsepower wouldn't be much of a change for them. He did say going to 900 would be quite an undertaking, and especially would be detrimental to the reliability of the engines.
Good.
Okay.
Go to 900. Thank you for the input, Doug. I've made my decision.
Yeah. All right, cool. We'll take 900 then.
Yep. Great.
Sounds awesome. Let's make some engines go kablamo. Although Denny Hamlin did have one go literally kablamo at one point there. A lot of fire. Not sure what happened.
Maybe that's a, maybe that's a big manufacturer pushback on that much horsepower. They want to see their engines blow up. Bad for business.
Possibly.
Bad look. It's like Goodyear, right? Like Goodyear, it's underappreciated when we talk about Goodyear, how much pressure we put on them to build us soft tires and all this stuff. We want a tire that wears out. We want a tire that shreds and gets soft and all this stuff. And I'm like the tire manufacturer trying to advertise to a retail customer and going, I don't want to advertise a tire that shreds apart.
Yeah, we know that.
I don't want to. I don't want to advertise a tire that blows out.
You're literally breaking no new ground. I think we've said that 1,000 times.
Well, I know we said that
100, and I would say 88 of them we said that same.
We've said that about tires, but I'm just saying, like on the engine side, we haven't really talked about that on the engine side.
No, we haven't. No, that's a good point.
It's like, why would Toyota, TRD builds their own engines and they put their name on the front, on the hood of these things, and then they go out and say, hey, buy a Camry, but don't buy Denny's Camry because that thing blew up on lap 75.
Actually, so I've been doing a bunch of research for a couple of YouTube videos I'm working on, and one is from the late 90s in the kart FedEx Championship, which was, the secondary series besides the IRL, or secondary is not correct, the split that occurred in American open wheel racing. In that era, those cars were absolute monsters, 1,000 horsepower, turbocharged. They were setting the closed speed records at 240 miles an hour. But there's a race in, I think it was 2000 at Fontana, where they only had 6 cars finished because like every engine detonated. And same thing in 1999, they had engines detonating everywhere. Literally massive explosions of the engine. And then I was watching, I know I said it last week, I think the 2002 F1 year in review. And every week there's like 4 or 5 cars that just absolutely explode their engine, some on the outlaps. And it was especially Honda at the time who had so many failures. And I can remember back then, there was like before memes essentially, but there was sort of like this discussion, and you'd saw in articles and such of like, why can't Honda build a reliable engine? That was probably bad PR at the time. So not working for them. Obviously different. They're trying to push a V10 to 1,000 horsepower and 22,000 RPM. A little different, but still it was, not good press. Don't think that's a good reason in this day and age though. It's 2025. I think now humans are humans. They get sucked in that sort of stuff. We see it with the internet that runs on all sorts of conspiracy theories and weird things that take off and go viral. But it's definitely, I don't know. I think a better show is better. Whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I also go back to, I think that just reliability of the car and having a question of whether the car can make it to the end of the race is a feature of NASCAR. Is one of the original fundamentals of NASCAR racing too, right? Yeah. These 500-mile races were sort of considered endurance races. And so I feel like we've gotten to this point where the cars are so reliable, or tend to be so reliable for a 500-mile race. I mean, don't say that to Denny Hamlin, but like these cars have shown to be so reliable that why does the race need to be, or that might have led to why we question why a race needs to be 500 miles anyways. It's like, hell, if the cars are all going to make it to the end of the race, it might as well be a 300-mile race, and let's just get to the point, which is the last 50 laps.
Well, that's exactly what happened. That's how we end up here. Also, don't tell Ryan Blaney that he had all those engine failures to start the year. So
anyways, go back to 900 horsepower, and if they blow up, they blow up. Doug will figure it out.
Well, you
Or
know
we'll
what we
give
just.
him enough money.
What's up,
And-
Josh?
So I just wanted to ask you guys this. So hear me out. We want to add hybrid systems already. We're going down this route.
Ooh.
I know you hate it. But a hybrid system that adds 1,000 horsepower, so the wheels are still sliding, but they get their endurance of their 550 package.
Well, the engines are
Well,
like
you know
650
what?
right now, 670. by
Or
the way.
whatever the number is. It keeps
Well,
going
if that's
down.
not the package you like, I can tell you a package that you will like. And that's the package you're going to get from spoilerdiecast.com.
Hey,
These guys are killing it right now. Using promo code MONEYLAP, you'll get free shipping on any order over $20. Is that still the case? Oh, that was for
Yep.
April. April's over. Are they going to keep it going? I think
keep
they
it rolling. Keep it rolling.
They keep it going because for April, they were giving us, with that code, free 64 scale diecast. I bet if you ordered one today and used promo code MONEYLAP, you just name drop me, and I'll make sure that you still get a free 64 scale diecast with all those purchases. They had all kinds of cool stuff. Gordon, Earnhardt, Labonte, what you call it? Just the good guys. Anyways, spoilerdiecast.com, one of the fastest growing diecast and racing merch companies out there, and for very good reason, Parker, because they ship same or next day. Your order does not sit around in limbo forever. They got a massive selection. When we started this, we bragged about how they had 800 products in stock. As of the other day, they have over 1,900 products in stock, mostly NASCAR, kind of like us, but they got a little bit of everything: dirt and sprint cars, IndyCar, F1. So if you're hunting down rare piece or just looking to rep your favorite driver, go to spoilerdiecast.com. Use promo code MONEYLAP, and Lord knows what you'll get.
Great place, spoilerdiecast.com. I was going to say that we talked within a 10-minute span, NASCAR, kart, and F1 all at one time. You can get all those diecast on spoilerdiecast.com.
You can get
Go check
kart
'em out.
diecast.
I don't know if you can get kart. That would be a tough one, but they have IndyCar. So,
Okay.
yeah, which is now, IndyCar, essentially when it merged in 08, they got all the archives and they kind of merged all of them together. So kart and IRL became one IndyCar, and it's all considered the same now, basically. Although we still separate them. Hey, let's quickly, you had that tweet that Denny Hamlin talked about Chris Wright and what he did there. Obviously, I had my I was on the broadcast with Adam Alexander. And, my initial thought when I first saw it was, hey, that car was way off the pace just a couple laps prior when Allgaier went around him and while in the lead. And, in that point in time, the 7 team had stayed out too long compared to the 88. They got Justin stuck in traffic. He was going slower. He saw that go down. He comes out on new tires. He's trying to make up time. He comes across the slower car, and that slower car makes the ultimate sin of a lap car, which is to not just hold a single line, which makes it really hard for a car that's going 10 or 15 mile an hour faster to avoid him or to know where he wants to go while trying to not lose too much time. And they met off of turn 4, wrecking each other. You had a tweet basically saying that lap car's responsibility is to hold the line. I would say that's exactly what I said, and I think I agree wholeheartily.
No, you're changing the words that I used.
Okay, sorry. You say it if you want your point made.
The point of the main point that I made, because everybody, if you say it like that, I'm just repeating everything that everybody else says.
Well, you've already been doing that all show. So
apparently, the mindset he needs to have, and I got this advice really early in my career, it stuck with me. He needs to he has the right to make them pass him where he wants them to pass him. I don't care that Justin's a leader. I don't care that he's 2 seconds faster than you. You're the car that's in front of him. Make him pass him where you want him to pass him. That's in your best interest. You want him to go around the outside? Then when you come off a turn 2, look in your mirror, take what your spotter's telling you about how far back he is. You have an idea how much faster he is. You prepare yourself to make him go to the outside. And you make him go to the outside. If you want him to go to the inside, same process. Gather the information, know where he's at, hold your car up by the wall, wave your finger out the window to go to the inside, and make a deliberate effort to run the second or third groove and make them pass you where you're comfortable with them passing you, right? When you look at it from that perspective that, hey, Chris, you're actually in control. This is your car. This is your racetrack, your space on the racetrack. You're entitled to it. But you do have a faster car that's passing you. Just control your own destiny. Make him go where you want. Right? This is kind of the second part of my tweet when I said guys like Chris, they get confused with all these people telling them what to do, right? They got crew chief yelling at him, they got NASCAR yelling at him, they got spotter saying go high, go low, do all this. He said it out on the radio. It's like, no, don't listen to all that. Where are you comfortable? Right? Is your car loose? Is your car tight? Where do you want to run on the track? So let's start there, right?
Mhm.
And then from there, make Justin pass you where you want him to pass you. And if you do that, you'll have way less issues than what you've been having. Because right now, a lot of times, guys like Chris, he doesn't want to wreck Justin. But like he's almost, you get yourself in trouble by trying to accommodate them, right? And he's like I just don't want to be in his way. And so where does Justin want to go? No, that's how you get in trouble, right? And so don't accommodate him. Just do what you want to do. Race where you want to race, and you control where Justin goes.
So that was a good 2 minutes, 38 seconds. Can I sum it up for you?
Yeah.
Hold your line.
Well, no. Hold. You're missing the point.
No,
it's like yeah. He will hold his line. This is almost like you have to have a vision for what you want, Chris. I was like, what do you want? You want him to go low? Then make him go low. And then, yes, you'll hold your line, of course. But it's just like when you don't know what you want, then you don't end up holding your line. When you're reacting to what you think Justin wants, right? If you're just trying to do what Justin wants to do, well, he doesn't know what Justin wants to do. It's not his job to know what Justin wants to do. I don't care if Justin wants. And actually, this is like how I was in the Cup Series or anytime I was a lap car. It's like, I don't care if the leader wants to run the bottom. I want to run the bottom. That's where my car's comfortable. He can go around the outside. He's a leader. He's fast enough. And you know what? I'll even accommodate him by pulling down a little bit and waving out the window or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, hey, Chris, it's a fast track. Your car's uncomfortable. There's multiple grooves out there. Where do you want to run? I want to run the bottom. Okay. Point to the top, make room, and hold your line on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. But like what I saw Chris doing there almost looked like he was trying to accommodate Justin and ended up obviously doing the opposite, wrecking them both. And you got a spotter telling him what to do. Go high, go low. The leader's trying to run the bottom, the leader's trying to run top. It's like, no. And then, you wrap the whole thing up with, and I think we might be talking about Frankie Muniz a little bit here too. My whole philosophy is like, dude, you're in control. It's your car. You're in control. You're responsible for your car at the end of the day.
Right.
And I think you guys wanted to talk about him, and
we go into it. You just go. Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, he's in his 4th consecutive DNF in the Truck Series, and he's getting frustrated, and I don't blame him. I mean, he's having a hard time. And he kind of, I think he said, let me wreck. He's like, let me wreck on my own for once. He's like, and it's such an adoring thing to say, right?
Yeah.
But I also would implore him to like, hey, pause for a second and just, why don't you take complete responsibility for these last 4 wrecks? And go back and watch the film, but watch it from the perspective of, I got myself into this mess. Right. And if you can do it from that perspective, you might actually be able to figure out what's sucking you into these. I had to go through that in the super speedway racing and I've told this story before, but it's like I went through an early part of my Cup Series career running well at super speedways and getting wrecked in all of them. And it was never my fault. I didn't cause the big ones. Right. Until I went back and watched the film and realized what I was doing, that I felt like was just putting myself in a low percentage situation to survive these wrecks, and made adjustments from there. And then that's when I went through a stretch of races with Hillman, and I actually felt like I, not only made it through super speedways without wrecking as much, but had some pretty good finishes.
You're responsible for your own race car. What do we say? If a meteor fell out of the sky and hits you, find a way to not be there where the meteor landed. Like,
Yeah, like it's like I told that to
that's simple as that.
who did I told that to Ryan Vargas one time at lunch. He asked me to take him out to lunch because he was in a similar situation of frustration. And I just said, look, dude, you have to think of it like if a meteor fell out of the sky and hit your car, you got to find a way to make it your fault so that you can assess what you could have done different.
Good
And there's no way
advice.
that Frankie or Chris or any of those drivers can, go back and look at all of those wrecks that they've been in and truly and honestly say there's nothing I could have done.
You know what we should do?
What's that?
So I texted Frankie a year ago to be on this show, 2 years ago. I can't remember. And then we bump into each other recent years. Like, hey, let's make that happen. Let's make it happen. We should get him on here and talk through this. That'd be fun.
Just open it up.
Yeah.
We'll just nitpick and make him feel like even worse like crap.
Yeah. Just make it feel awful, Frankie.
Just make him feel awful.
No. I like that he's committed to it. I think it's cool
He
that
is.
he's doing this, but I, would not be. I'd be lying to say I was surprised. I'm surprised when, just knowing his level of experience in these cars and this racing and the team he's at, all those things combined to have had some frustration. Doesn't surprise me. I think he's jumped into a very large undertaking. I know he's got a lot going on. I think he's, talked a little bit about with all the new Malcolm Middle coming back and other things he's filming and that sort of stuff. His schedule is crazy. And it's like, hey, that's a tough thing to do because, when you are doing all that other stuff, which I wholeheartedly appreciate. I've been someone who balances a lot of things outside just driving. But the other side of that is all the people that are starting out with your level of experience are not juggling all those things as well.
Right.
Some of them, this is their only thing, right? And if you're going to, for later on in a career, if you're able to juggle a lot of things because you could do this on autopilot, that's different, right? But I think that's a tough position to be in, to be doing a lot of different things, trying to learn this and trying to figure it out. And yeah, I think but there's little tropes like you went into, which is, hey, you got to watch this and figure out if you can put responsibility on yourself, you can then change that going forward. You can control that. But to just say you're getting wrecked all the time, it's like, well, there's nothing you can do to fix that, but it's going to keep happening unless you find out if there's a common theme or do the work is to understand why you're in those positions. So,
right. I'll just leave us with a bomb before we end this conversation.
What's that?
So and that the whole concept goes the same for Justin Allgaier, right? To some degree, because, and I had a friend text me, which I don't know if he wants to be named for this hot take.
Oh,
but I had a friend text me that said my hot take is that I can't post on social media is that Justin was just as much at fault as Chris, even if Chris did everything in the book wrong. And my reply to that text was simply they both got a 4X. Right? But that's the fact, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, even for Justin, he's kicking himself. He's and Justin's an experienced enough guy. I think he probably knows this. He has every right to be frustrated with Chris and you can definitely blame Chris. But the thing is like, if you just lapped the guy 10 laps before you pitted and had a similar experience with him and you have a dominant car and you know where you're at, like there's always something you could have done.
Yeah, definitely.
There's just always something. By the way, 4X in iRacing, in sim racing online means that there was an incident on your car. But the beauty in it that I love about iRacing is it's essentially no fault, right? If you made contact, you made contact. There's no taking that back.
Well, and you both get a 4X.
Yeah, if a meteor falls from the sky and lands on your car, both you and the meteor get a 4X.
That's good. Let's talk F1. Speaking of 4Xs, 1Xs, and 2Xs, Cadillac teased us all the big announcement down in Miami for the Miami GP. All the famous people were there. The parties looked illustrious and large, and clubs were filled with tequila and flowing vodka and such, and all that sort of thing that comes with confetti and such that happens at clubs. Cadillac has this announcement. They get this big club. They're going to do this huge thing. People were talking about Sergio Perez's jet has landed in Miami. Maybe they're making a driver announcement. And they announced this groundbreaking, massive thing called a logo. And the logo was the Cadillac logo with underneath it maybe would have been Times New Roman Formula One team.
Wow.
And I saw this video. I hate to hate on them a little bit because I am really excited that Cadillac's going in there, and we've talked about it on here a bunch. And it's really cool they're doing this, and it's awesome to see the GM commit to this level of racing across all their programs. But they have this huge club, and they got all these people in it. And I saw these influencers were posting, "Oh my goodness, like this is amazing!" And there's all these people filming the video screen of like coming up, here we go, and it's like all these flashing lights and Formula One cars going by, and then it's just like boom, Cadillac logo, Formula One team. And people are clapping and cheering like woo. I'm like, geez, there's just no way to have like scripted that better than how that went down. If you'd seen it in a movie, you'd be like, well, that's dumb. They wouldn't be that stupid. Nope, that's what happened. So Cadillac has a logo, and there you go. We're all excited. How amazing. And for all the people that got to go to the club that night, they're like, thanks for the free bar tab. We appreciate it. Was a good race this past weekend. 2 races, actually, because it was a sprint race as well. In the sprint qualifying, Kimi Antonelli got the pole. Pretty cool to see. Young kid do that. Threw down a really good lap. The race was full of wet weather and drying weather and that sort of thing. Ended up getting a little neutered at the end. I was trying to watch on my phone as I went into doing the rehearsal for the pre-race show for the Texas Xfinity race, and then eventually in the race. So I had this going on the whole time and having to like pause it or like turn off the sound as we did a rehearsal, that sort of thing. So I was trying to keep up with it, but it was interesting. Nonetheless, it led to the main event where Max Verstappen had once again a opening lap, call it instant, whatever that people wanted to discuss, which was him and Landon Norris coming off, I want to say, into turn 2, basically. And Max gets almost like a little bit loose as they're side by side, which sort of forces Lando out, and he has to once again go in the paint, similar to what we saw at Jeddah. And then they were all discussing, like, oh, is that a penalty and that sort of thing. Remind you, the cars, maybe if they touched, it was barely, but they didn't really touch. It's just one of the most classic racing incidents I've ever seen. And the internet world was going to a wild of people wanting to give a 5-second penalty, or, you know, once again, Max be exiled from the sport because he's dangerous and this sort of stuff. And I kind of sat there for a second and I just thought, like, this guy is public enemy number one. One, he's trying to take a car that's clearly not as fast as his competition and beat them with it. And 2, he's the only one who's like really willing to push these just asinine, stupid rules about trying to put racing into some formulated box of, you know, what is whose corner and that sort of stuff. And he's the only one I've really seen that's like really trying to push the issue of just like showing how stupid this is, that we're always discussing these incidents in a way that they can be like balls and strikes and not just, hey, that's racing. You put 2 fast cars next to each other going for a corner. But
is he vocal enough about it?
I don't think he's allowed to be vocal right now. He's not.
True.
He can't be. He'd get penalized. True. So he's doing it on the racetrack. And I just think it's kind of special. Now, I've always been a fan of his talent. I'm not his biggest, like, a fan of his, just the way he's gone about things, I think, at times. But I feel like I'm slowly becoming his fan, because to me, he's the only one who's like straight up, in a way, through his physical moves, calling out the BS that is all these stupid rules and these ideas of like what is considered racing and what's not. And, you know, what is forcing someone off and what is not forcing someone off. And yeah, he uses it to his advantage when he calls on the radio and says, hey, that guy forced me off or whatever. But I feel like, I don't know, I just get the sense that he can't say anything. And so you're seeing it on the racetrack. And I appreciate that.
He DGAF.
Say that again.
Josh got that.
I got it.
I didn't get it.
He DGAF.
Yeah.
I'll let the commenters.
Thank you. Yep. Now I got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Nonetheless, it didn't matter because McLaren was drastically faster than the field. Oscar Piastri went on to an easy win. Lando Norris, about 4 some odd seconds behind him, maybe made a late push to gain some time on him, but then it sort of fizzled out. They were way ahead of the rest of the field. So it didn't matter what anyone did. They were going to get the win. there on that day. Once again, showing that they're probably the ones to beat, and I think their advantage at times was a half second, a la similar to what we saw at Red Bull in years past. But now McLaren is making a major step, and we saw it probably in the most drastic way this past weekend in the actual Grand Prix, when I think they were, how far ahead were they by the end, Josh? Over third? Was the leader like 30 seconds, 35 seconds, something crazy like that?
Let me pull up the results real quick. I'll get that answer shortly.
Yeah. Nonetheless, Oscar Piastri's at 6 wins now, and is definitely in the
yes.
championship lead.
It was Norris in second, finished for 4.5 seconds behind Oscar, and he finished 33 seconds ahead of George Russell.
Jeez. Yeah.
They could have gone for a stop on the last lap just for the
fun.
kicks and giggles. So
Yep, it's domination. I don't know, I felt like not a great race at Miami once they sort of got so far out front. You had a couple good battles, inter-team battles between Lewis and Charles Leclerc. That was interesting, where they were kind of getting asked to swap back and forth. They didn't really pass each other as much as they were just like, I'm faster, I want to be ahead. Okay, now you're faster, you go ahead. Lewis did have some fun radio transmissions to his team about not talking to him under the brake zone, and then eventually when he let Leclerc pass, they told him Sainz is 1.4 seconds back, and he asked, do you want me to let him by too? Williams was probably the highlight for me for the weekend. They got a top 5 and a top 10 there in the Grand Prix, and I thought that was pretty cool. Albon was 5th, I want to say. So that was kind of cool to see them on good form, which was fun.
I'm looking at the results sheet, and one thing I'm noticing is McLaren runs a Mercedes power unit. Mercedes obviously runs a Mercedes power unit. Williams is running a Mercedes power unit. The only one with a Mercedes power unit that hasn't quite figured it out is Aston Martin. But
yeah,
but it's
well,
just
they
interesting
can't
to
be
me.
getting much info because aren't they going to Honda next year? So yeah, they're in a lame duck year.
It is motorsports.
It is.
They don't call it
sports.
It ain't driver sports. It is motorsports. There is some rumors out there and reports that Jack Doohan is out in favor of Franco Colapinto, who this already started before the season began, this discussion at Alpine, and now looks like it possibly will be happening before the next race. Where are we going next, Josh? Is Montreal next, or where are we going next?
Our next race is Emilio.
Mexico.
Yeah. No, Italy.
Oh, Imola. We're going to Imola.
Yeah.
All right. By the third try, I was going to get it right.
That'd be a big one for the Ferrari teams.
That is every time they're in Italy. Well, so this will be interesting. It just seems like in terms of the driver stuff between Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto, obviously I think there's some financial stuff going on, tomfoolery in the background with Franco's Argentinian support. Always is. So I think it's unfortunately for Jack, he just hasn't been able to do anything. He had an early exit from the Miami GP, maybe no fault of his own. Gets the left front basically taken off by, I think it was Pierre Gasly. No, it wasn't Pierre. It was Liam Lawson. Is that correct? Liam Lawson. And
yes,
that kind of knocks him out, so he doesn't get to show anything. It's just funny. The cutthroat nature of F1 gets you sometimes in how, hey, here's 4 or 5 races. It reminds me of when you and I were development drivers in the mid 2000s, where you'd be like, you get this deal of a cup team. They sign you to like a year or 2-year contract. And they're like, all right, we're going to develop you, blah, blah. You get in the system, everything. And it's like,
oh, you didn't win in your first 3 races?
Yeah,
you
really.
Changed your mind.
We're going to give you 3 Xfinity races. And by the way, mind you, this car is being driven by 4 other cup drivers who have multiple championships and have been doing this for 20 years. They've won 1 race. Oh, you didn't win? Get out. And you were done. We saw so many drivers come through that time. And it's just like, maybe when the money's flowing, team's patience goes to 0 is the idea. I don't know. Kind of interesting. Did you catch the IndyCar race, Landon?
I did not, but I have a take on this tweet that you guys are about to go after. So,
all right. Well, I don't want to be mean because we do the listeners of this and viewers know I love IndyCar. But it was not much of a show. They did their best. The broadcast did show a lot of battles, which was cool. They did their best through the pit cycles and such. They've now not had a single caution this season. Pillow dominated once again. The crazy part is you can just see how much they're fighting those cars and how difficult it is and everything. And there's so many of them now, and it's such a competitive series. But for whatever reason, there's just times where you're like, this is a tough watch. And I don't know why. And I know the hybrid came in, last year, and maybe that's been some of the conjecture about how everyone kind of runs the same strategy with it, and therefore it's just a heavier car now, and maybe that's just hurting them, that sort of thing. It's not adding anything, but I don't know. It just they're in a tough phase right now with that hybrid and what racing is providing. If it's done anything, it's really done nothing, basically. So what do you want to say?
Well, Will Buxton kind of came to the rescue on social media over complaints that it was a boring race. And he said, tell me how a driver showing generational talent is boring. I agree with that. I love watching greatness. Tell me how a driver in a new team fighting through second is boring. Right? Parity. Driver in one of the smallest teams finishing fourth is boring. Tell me how the GOAT making up 14th places with no cautions is boring. Since I didn't watch the race, I just want to be clear to make sure we're on the same page. Who is he talking about with GOAT?
Scott Dixon.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we're talking about the right GOAT.
On our 100th episode, we give you the most in-depth, unbelievable, inside information there is. The GOAT,
also the
by
Alex
IndyCar
Palou
broadcaster, is Scott Dixon.
Also, the Pillow domination
guy is nuts, man.
And it's and Will Buxton's absolutely right there. Let's at least marvel in that. And it's a shame. I guess it doesn't really sound like he's a conversation for any F1 stuff going on, or is he?
He says it's kind of faltered. It sounds like it's not happening. Yeah, which is a shame because he's obviously an F1 level talent. But you know what? Just be it's kind of the old thing of like, do you want to be the big fish in the little pond, or go to that pond and potentially blow it all up? And we've seen that before out of IndyCar drivers who go over there and they don't get the best treatment or best opportunities, and before they know it, you're back trying to be, and you lose your chance at winning more IndyCar championships or being in the best IndyCar ride, which he's in at Ganassi. And why mess that up? I think would be the question, right?
I was curious because I was going to ask you guys, but I looked it up. Alex Palou is super license eligible. So he can go out and get a he could join an F1 team. So Cadillac.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know he could. But I think his thing is that he I saw a report that basically said like it's just he's not getting a lot of conversation about it. So we'll see. All right, Josh. We've held it off long enough for our 100th episode. Should we do picks first, and then we're gonna dive into some of the stuff out there, or
can I ask you guys one thing before we go into picks?
What's that?
Why are we still choosing Penske and not Palou for these races? This is last week's picks. I'm just reviewing last week's pick. And Brett and I got to figure it out.
I can answer that question for you with this week's pick.
Well, for me, I'll be honest, Scott McLaughlin, what did he do? Two in a row there? He was back to back. That's why I picked him. I was going.
And who did I pick?
You picked Joseph Newgarden.
Most handsome. Yeah, easy.
Well, and he
next question
mightily. He was outside the top 10. I think he's 12th in points or something now, Joseph Newgarden.
So, how did he look when he got out of the car?
Oh, perfect. He looked great. Draw line, impeccable.
Next question.
Literally impeccable. Yeah. He actually
phenomenal.
He went and did a fitness competition right after, probably. So just got out and was like, that was fun. That was pretty intense physically. I know it's probably the highest G load track all year. No cautions. All right, who's ready to go do a Ironman right now? It's like, okay. Joseph.
Sounds like somebody on this podcast does a marathon after he gets out of the car.
It's true. He's done
Been
that.
there, done
before.
that.
All
All
right.
right, let's do our picks.
Let's do our picks. Where are we racing this coming week?
All
What's
right,
out
this
there?
coming week, NASCAR is at Kansas and IndyCar is at the IMS road course.
But there's no Xfinity this weekend.
No
It's off the
Xfinity,
chain.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. All right, Landon, you pick a Cup, truck, IndyCar.
Tyler Reddick, Ty Majeski, again. And where'd you say IndyCar was at?
The road course at Indianapolis.
That's what I thought. Alex Pillow.
I knew that's where he was
Knew
going with it. I was like, absolutely, he's going there. Cup at Kansas. I'm gonna say this is going to Kyle Busch.
Oh,
We should guess who's going to win the poll.
Well, I just realized something. We'll talk about it in a minute. Trucks. I'm gonna go Corey Heim.
all right.
Hey, what car is Alexander Rossi in for IndyCar? Now.
I gotta look that up.
Okay, you just look it up real quick.
Yeah, I'm looking it up real quick. You said Alexander Rossi. He's in a Chevy with VCR.
That's right. I'll take Alex Pillow.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's a good joke. That's a good
I
one.
was just making a joke, by the way. I know exactly what car he was in.
What? Why do I not see anything for PR Lab?
Well, it's just not really in there because we did a tweet and we were going to answer all these things that we got tweeted to us.
Okay.
So, Josh, can you bring up our tweets?
Yeah, here you go.
So I
This
said
is,
that we didn't have anything to celebrate. So this is where we answer all these. All right, I kind of answered this one. This was Eric J. Ohio Diecast said, I don't usually ask questions, but this one finally got me. When I listen through the Bluetooth of my truck, the picture that comes up is a random guy. I think it's an actor, but I can't remember his name. What's the backstory there? Is it to entice Kyle Busch? #show. I asked him for a photo on this, Landon. He has posted this. It is definitely a random actor who shows up on this man's Bluetooth in his truck. It is not the cover art for our show. So not sure what's going on there, Eric, but I think your truck is somehow putting that there.
That's AJ, one of our producers.
All right. Skid, who is Skid, who's actually one of those accounts that post a lot of like cool clips all the time, said, I stole it from Couch Racer, but what rule change would you like to see implemented in the Cup Series effective immediately?
Oof, putting me on the spot.
Yeah. What you got?
Like, just, hey, we need to make a rule change right now.
If you
What's it
had
gonna
to,
be?
gun to your
No
head,
more
you gotta make
stages.
one. Ooh, really?
Like, putting me on the spot, making me think. No stages.
no stages. What? No tapered spacer.
Well, that's
No, you said it says any rule. That is a rule.
okay. It is a rule.
Hell,
Fine.
no engine rules whatsoever.
Yours better than mine. Yeah. Well,
I don't want to talk about it anymore. Christian Slomer here says from Slow Motion, since it's rumored BJ McLeod will drive a Spire truck soon, what do you guys think is the biggest challenge going from a small team to a big team, and how long does it take to adjust? You kind of did that.
is that a rumor?
I guess I thought it was confirmed he was driving it.
It's a rumor, but if
Okay.
Parker feels like it's confirmed, then might as well be confirmed.
Interesting. Oops, that's one of those moments. So, wait, real quick, just on you'll love this,
Yeah.
Landon, on the broadcast. There's these moments where, because you have conversations with all these people in passing in life and whatever, and sometimes competitors will tell me things and be like, "Hey, don't put that out there. It's going to be out in 3 weeks or whatever." And there was this moment during the broadcast this weekend where I was like, in my head, I'm like, do I know this thing because they told me or it's been announced? So I had to literally look it up on my phone as I'm about to be like tasked to talk about this thing. And I'm like, okay, it is announced. And then I went with it. But I was like, I remember this person telling me this before it was announced, like weeks or months. And I was like, is this one of those things that I know that I shouldn't say or that I know and I can say? So
Well, to answer Christian's question, I think the biggest challenge is figuring out how to win. Like he can
Yeah.
go fast. He can, but that was my challenge, is like the first time restarting in the front row. Be
it's
like,
totally
"Oh,
different.
I haven't done this before." Like not in this setting,
Yep.
right? Where you actually deserve to be up there and
Yeah.
need to stay up there,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to like, oh, we stayed out or we did this or we did that. It's like, oh no, I'm on the offense here. That's something that someone like him, similar to myself, it's like it's just so in tuned in executing a strategy that accommodates doing this, right? Running 15th to 25th and doing it really, really well. I think I said one time in a conversation to somebody, I'm pretty sure I could run 15th in Johnny Davis's Xfinity car with my eyes closed. Right? Like you just know the playbook on how to do that, how to survive the races that are survival, So.
All right. I would say for me, I've kind of gone both ways. That out of context is going to sound wrong. I meant like I've gone from big teams to small teams back to big teams. I would say
We've all known this for a long time, Parker.
Yeah,
We're happy for you.
The thing for me that I found the biggest difference was that a big team, you like obviously the expectations are different, but you get to a point where because you have so many resources, you're dealing with such incremental small things you're trying to change and work on, whatever. And when you're at the small teams, sometimes it's easier and it's freeing because it's just like, we'll just do the basics. Let's just see what we get.
Right.
Like you just do that. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah. Like, so like
agree
for
with that.
trucks, I can tell you that like there's many times on the 75 truck where we know that there's teams doing some more advanced stuff suspension wise, or they're doing, the progressive rear spring stuff at certain tracks that it's really hard to make work and that sort of stuff. And I'm like, hey, Chris, just put 1100 in the right rear. I'll go out. We'll make it work. And sure enough, we go do it. And it's like, yeah, we ran 5th. Okay. Like, did we need that to win? Probably. Were we going to figure that out and win? No. If we did it and it was wrong, we'd run 18th. And it's just like, that's what you do. And if we had it play out better, maybe we win. I don't know. Right. So I always think that's one of the bigger differences between why sometimes you can be successful as a small team versus a big team.
Like in his mind, his solution to some of the problems might be bigger swings than what it really is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And I found myself getting frustrated with that sometimes when I would drive for better teams, or even like when I drove with teams that had more resources, where it's like the crew chief wants to make a 1/32 of an inch packer change. And I'm like, it's not going to do anything. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like change everything. Like don't make a 30-second packer change. Like that's the difference between if I brake too hard or not. like I can change the splitter by a 30-second just from the driver's seat. But that's coming from the perspective of when you don't have those engineering resources, you're not changing minute things. You're like changing the actual spring itself or whatever. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
Z Maya says your favorite moment of the Landon's career, and vice versa. You're the Landon's.
Do what?
It's basically what's your favorite moment of your career. But
Asking me what my favorite moment of my career is.
Yep.
Mine is just kind of stuck for.
Wait a second. I think you actually did it right. I think they're asking us of each other.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
My favorite moment of your career. What sticks out to me?
What an endearing question.
That is a really nice question. It's very flattering. My favorite moment of your career. Well, it was fun when you were at Colleague rooting for you at the front. But I would say, there's a race in my head. I just can't think of it, where I was like, damn, how do you do that? I want to say when you were at front row, and I can't think of the specific race, but I know there was, because I know I texted you even back then, and I was like, damn, that was impressive. But I can't tell you what it was. But that would be like my favorite moments was always, well, I just say moments in general, watching you take cars that were not meant to be running where they were and finding a way to put them there.
My favorite moment of your career, you're wearing the shirt, is your Mid-Ohio win.
Oh, that was a different one. But yeah, that was
Is
a
it
cool
different?
one.
Your
Yeah,
Mid
this is a
Ohio
good one.
win because it was a foregone conclusion. I'm sorry, it was a foregone conclusion that you were going to win that race. You decided you were going to win that race like 2 weeks before you won that race.
Did we talk beforehand? We must have. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was just like you had decided you won that race. You were like, I'm winning this race. I decided.
Yep. That's a good
And
point.
everything leading into that race and your preparation and your team was like, yeah, we're winning this race. That's the plan. and I don't want to say it came easy. I mean, you should have won the race the way you performed in that race, but it still
Yeah.
didn't come easy.
No.
And you made it happen.
Appreciate
And so it was just like, I don't know. I just that was one of the moments where I was like, oh my God, this guy, I can't even do anything close to what this guy can do.
You know what's funny is the way you say that, where it was like decide to win. When I won Talladega in 2017, that whole week, anyone to listen, I'm like, I'm gonna win this weekend. And they're just like, why? I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna win. And then in Daytona this year, that whole like for 2 months, my owner would text me, we're gonna win, like let's go win. I'm like, yep, we're gonna win. My whole team's like, we're gonna win, and then we won. Wow, they took it away. But it's funny. There's something to be said about that manifesting. I don't know. Dark Knight ask, their actual name is Enraged Panda. Does it matter to have an off-track relationship with your spotter and or crew chief, or is it all business? That's an interesting one. I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters. It's just however the chemistry works.
Yeah. I think it's if whatever, you don't have to be best friends. You don't have to go out, hang out all the time. But when you show up, have a mutual level of respect of some sort. And I think
you got to understand how to communicate with each other.
Yeah, and understand how to talk. And I think you can go places, no doubt.
Mhm.
SR2448 says favorite dinosaurs. I'm going the Supersaurus. Long neck.
T-Rex.
T-Rex? What? You like no arms?
I drove the T-Rex.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Tad Askew says, why the hell don't they get rid of the bump at tracks like Texas Motor Speedway and Pocono? Because it's character. It's character.
Yeah, but they also try to, and you just simply can't. The bumps are there for a reason. They're there like for deeper reasons than just a surface.
Yeah.
So at Texas Motor Speedway, it has a lot to do. It goes all the way back 30 years ago when they made the track, and how the drainage and basically the water planning and foundation on what the track was built on. The story that I always heard was that Bruton shortcutted the money that he spent on that stuff, and which ended up resulting in this track surface that moved a bunch and
oh no,
and had poor drainage and all this stuff. That's why the track has always been hard to get dry. And why the track surface had just always been so bad.
We saw those weepers on Friday. And they were trying to get the Xfinity practice qualifying happen. They got close, but there's weepers.
And usually those bumps have something to do with just something that's underneath it, right? Like, so 1 and 2 always had a really bad bump because of the tunnel. Vegas has a really bad bump because of the tunnel. The turn 2 bump that you're referring to, Tad, at Pocono, there's a tunnel. There's always something beneath it. You're not just going to fix it by paving it.
Rob Elliott says, and this is not correct, but is Landon enjoying retirement? Not correct.
I don't know. Yeah. Do you ever have to say that you're retired from driving?
No, you don't. Absolutely don't have to. Not even a little.
I am enjoying the car business though.
I was just looking at a story of Roberto Moreno, who was like the super sub in his 40s in IndyCar and IRL. And I mean, he made it a point even now in his 60s to say he never retired. He's like, nope. I just didn't.
Might come back.
I might come back. Don't worry. Like, I might be there. And he went all the way into like 07 driving Indy cars into his 50s. So you never know. John Manning says, most surprising thing about having a podcast. Well, it's a show, but what has been after 100 episodes, Landon, the most surprising thing to you?
That it's still fun.
Oh, woo! I thought you were going to say getting recognized at
Yeah, it's actually that
Menswear
is.
stores.
That is the fact that we've gotten recognized multiple times in big city menswear stores. That was weird.
That is
Not
pretty
weird.
funny.
Not weird. If you see me, say hi. That's like I would have expected it more out of like a Casey's or something.
No, because we have the best looking audience. We know that.
Yeah, and
And the most intelligent.
That's
So considering it's surprising that we've said at the beginning we only have one listener, it's Denny Hamlin. But these others somehow seen us. What has been surprising to me, and this leads into my point, is the amount of people who come up to me throughout my time at the tracks, that sort of thing, and say, I love the show. I watched this clip. I'm like, wait a second. You do know those clips come from a longer form episode, but I do appreciate everyone that looks at clips, and I know those go a lot bigger than what these do on YouTube or just in downloads and streams on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But that is always a funny one for me, where I'm like, so you watch the clips, just be honest. But we've seen, as we've gotten some comments as of late, of people who have been converted from clip watchers to being full-on listeners and viewers here on YouTube and Apple and everything. So that was the questions we had that we picked out. Josh, you said you had something?
Yeah, it's kind of on the lines of the last one, but you guys talked about things that happened outside of the podcast over the last 2 years. What has been your favorite moment that's happened on the podcast?
The show?
The show. That one.
Testing the memory. Hold on. I would say every time we've had to come on here and somebody's mic is messed up, or the time we did 5 or 7 minutes before you guys realized to tell me that my mic wasn't the right mic. That was my favorite.
wow. Mine is a shame to say because we haven't done it since, but I think Money Lap Live is my favorite.
Oh, that was cool.
There's just nothing like a live show.
Yeah.
That was the best. Yeah. That was
I
the
love
coolest thing
live
we
show.
did.
It's so real, so authentic. I wish we could do more of it.
I know.
I wish it was the key to exponential growth.
It's a huge undertaking. It was a lot of fun. We had so many cool guests that gave us their time. It was a cool period of the year to do it in the off season. Everyone's relaxed, bigger, broader conversations. Who knows? Maybe one day it'll come back. If we had enough outcry out there, we could maybe be motivated to do it. But oh wait, speaking of guest. Oh, we're now. This was a long one. On the 100th episode, we even mentioned him at the top. Oh. Kyle Busch. He left the green room, didn't he? Yep, he's not there. Jeez. All right, we apologize. You know what? It's just going to happen, I guess, in the next 100 episodes here of Money Lap. Thank you all for listening, watching, sharing this with friends. Please continue to do that. We will keep doing this and putting it out there. All we ask from you is to just share it. Give it some love. Thanks for watching this. Bye. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Money Lap. If you like this show, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Share it with friends. We want to spread the word of great motorsports shows, of which we're somewhere up and around there. I'm not exactly sure where, but nonetheless, you can also reach out to us anytime on across social media or at our website, themoneylap.com, or at our email, friends@themoneylap.com. And of course, you can always leave us a review. 5 stars gets you on this very show. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Goodbye.